What's up guys, and welcome to the first video here on my channel. I'm sorry if I sound weird, but I still don't have a microphone and yeah, I need to buy one. But I have today for you some of the most famous chest traps. Uh, well, they're not maybe the most famous, but they are famous at least. I found these traps on an article on chess.com. I'll put the link in the description, so feel free to check it. Uh, yeah, let's start. So the first trap here we have is called the Noah's Ark Trap, and starts, as you can see, from the Rui Lopez. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop b5. This is the Rui Lopez. And here black plays a6, which is Morphy's defense. Bishop goes back, and here we play this tricky move, d6. It's not wrong, but it's not something played on the highest level. Here the general idea for white is to play c3 followed by d5, but you can start with d4 immediately, and here comes the trap. So you first play b5, you kick the bishop back, the bishop moves back, and now here you play knight takes pawn. And after knight takes pawn, knight takes knight, pawn takes knight. Feel free to stop the video here and see if white can take the pawn on d4 or not. Well, actually taking the pawn on d4 is a big blunder. Why? Because of this powerful move, c5. Now, okay, c5, if the queen, let's say, moves back, you have c4 and you trap the bishop. But what if the queen goes to d5? Now the rook is hanging. If you play c4, you lose your rook. So you can't play c4. What do you do here? You play first an in-between move, bishop e6. Now, if, let's say, the queen goes back anywhere, you have c4, you win the bishop. So white has to check here on c6, and here you block with the bishop, bishop d7. There are no moves for white here. If white moves back, then c4 wins the bishop. White can try this desperate move, bishop takes on f7, and after king takes on f7, the queen moves back with check because it's hanging, and here you just block with the bishop, the queen moves back, and yeah, you're up a piece here. You just develop normally, you develop your knight, you develop your bishop, and yeah, and then you bring the rook into the game, and the king can go to g8 and feel very safe. Black is completely winning here. Let's go to the next trap, and it's called Legal's Trap or Legal's Mate. This trap is for the white pieces. It's quite famous, and you can get it from the Philidor defense, or you can get it from the Giocobiano, or not Giocobiano, the Italian game. Let's see. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, or d6. You can get it from knight c6, bishop c4, and then d6 here. It's a transposition. So go back, knight f3, d6, and here you play bishop c4. Now black goes knight c6, developing the knight. You develop the knight here with white, knight c3, and here black plays bishop g4, natural move, pinning the knight. And here you play a very important move, h3. I will show you why h3 is very important here. After h3, the bishop goes back. The best move here actually is just to take the knight, and white has an advantage here, a slight advantage because of the bishop pair and the lead in development. But if black goes back, now you have this powerful queen sacrifice. It's knight takes on e5. Well, obviously, if the queen is taken, this is Legal's mate. You take on f7, check. The king has to go to e7, the only move, and then you go knight d5, checkmate. Now, if after the bishop goes back and you take, what if black takes the knight? I mean, black can also take the knight here. Knight takes on e5. Now we simply take the bishop, but okay, our bishop is trapped. What are you talking about? After knight takes, you have this strong check, queen b5 check, and after, yeah, block with the pawn or queen d7, you take the knight. Okay, the pieces are equal. You have a bishop and a knight for a bishop and a knight, but white here just want a clean pawn, so white is to be preferred here. But let's go back. I said h3 is very important, but why? If you go for the same tactic here, knight takes on e5, well, this loses actually, because after knight takes, the knight is defending the bishop, simply. Well, after knight takes, if black doesn't take the knight and takes the queen, then it's the same mate. But yeah, let's go to the next trap. The next trap here is called the Cambridge Spring Trap, and it's from the Queen's Gambit. So you go d4, d5, c4, e6. This is the Queen's Gambit declined. Knight c3, knight f6, bishop g4, and here you play this move, knight bd7. You can do this trap with bishop d7. I will show you later why. But here after knight bd7, it seems like white can win a pawn here by just the means of cd, ed, and knight takes, because I mean the knight is pinned here, but this is actually losing. Why? Because after knight takes, you sack your queen. After bishop takes on d8, you have this powerful check. The king has no squares. White has to block, and well, you don't have to take the queen immediately, even though it's a very good move, but you can just take the bishop. And yeah, let's say white take, or like plays a6, anything. You just take and you end up being up a piece, a knight. But you can actually do the same trap with bishop d7 here. It's a dubious move, and if white doesn't fall for the trap, then you'll just end up in a slightly worse position. But try it on the lower level, like in bullet or blitz. It will work, because it looks just too juicy to grab this pawn. But here you have the same tactic, check, and you end up being up a piece here again. Now white can do something else here. White can take, and then take here. Well, that's the downside of bishop d7. It's a dubious move again. You can take here actually with the pawn, and after knight takes, okay, you lost the pawn, but you can play c5, and after pawn takes, for instance, you attack the knight. The knight drops back. You play knight bd7 for not trading queens, and then yeah, you can capture here. Sorry, you can capture here the pawn. You can go queen c7 and go alongside castling. Maybe use the g open file. This works in bullet, but don't play it in any serious game. So let's go to the next trap. We have the famous Lasker trap, and it starts with d4, d5, c4, and here we play e5, the Alabin counter gambit. And after d takes on e5, the best move, you play d4. This is the idea of the gambit. So you offer your e5 pawn, but you push the d pawn and control some squares in white's camp, so you prevent the knight from developing. And next you're going to play, let's say, knight c6, knight knight e7, and then knight g6, and capture the e5 pawn. This is the idea. This gambit is not recommended on the high level, but try it in blitz and bullet. It's fun to play. But here there is a trap after d5. White should play knight f3 here, g3, put the bishop in g2, and castle. And yeah, and then white can play a3, challenge this pawn, and get a very fast development. This is how white should go. But there is here a very interesting move. Not interesting, but logical one. It's e3. You can pause the video and think why e3 is not a good move. Well, after e3, you have this move, bishop b4 check. Now, okay, you have to block. You play bishop d2, and here comes the the strong move. D takes on e3. Now, it looks like a free bishop here. Like, can't I just grab the bishop on b4? Well, here comes the trick. You take on f7 with check. Okay, but okay, if king takes, then white loses the queen. But what if white plays king e2 here? And okay, if black checks, then you have knight c3. Well, black does not check here with a bishop. There is a more powerful move, and it's pawn takes knight, under promoting to a knight with check. It's very important to take with check here. And after rook takes, you have bishop check, and you win the queen. And if, let's say, white doesn't take and goes back, then you have queen check. I mean, if g3, you can check on e4 and win the rook here in the corner. I mean, it's just completely winning here. Yeah, so after e takes on d3, if white decides to take the bishop, then you have this powerful move, e takes on f2, and white is gonna just suffer severe material loss. Or let's say if this, and then I think you can check here. If g3, oh sorry, okay, you don't have a check here on e4, but you can simply, yeah, okay, the check is the strongest on the engine, so you check g3. Okay, and you go queen here, attacking the knight, and yeah, you can simply here just trade and take the pawn back, and your pawn structure is much better here. Okay, into the next trap. So trap number 5 is the Rubinstein trap, and it starts with d4, d5, knight f3, knight f6, and c4. The queen's gambit declined. You can get it from different different move order, from like d4, d5, c4, without knight f3, or like before knight f3. Knight f6, c4, e6. You go bishop g5, knight b7. Okay, just one thing. This trap is a bit long. You don't have to memorize the whole variation. I think the variation here played is a bit dubious. It was played many years ago by Rubinstein, but it's good to know this this trap, because it will repeat in similar structures in the queen's gambit decline. You will see what I mean. So after knight b7, white plays e3 to open up for his bishop. Bishop e7, knight c3, castles, rook c1. The c file could open at any time, so rook c1 is a useful move. Now rook e8. Okay, rook e8. Maybe black wants to go back with the bishop and then try to go for e5, for instance. Queen c2, developing the queen. a6. Maybe the idea is d takes after bishop takes to go b5 and put the bishop here on b7. Here white takes, pawn takes. Now the bishop, the d5 pawn is weak, but bishop d3, and yeah, a logical move here is c6 to defend the pawn. White castles here, and here comes the first bad move by Rubinstein's opponent, which is knight e4. Now Rubinstein here played bishop f4. It's interesting, but it's not the best move. The best move here is actually bishop takes. Now if bishop takes, you take here with check, and yeah, you can take the bishop here or just go back with your bishop. And if pawn takes, you take knight takes, you defend your bishop, and if black plays f5 here, then there is a trick, which is queen check. You don't have to check, but it's a good check. You just get the king out of the game, or a bit far, and you play knight d6. Now, okay, what is knight d6? Well, first of all, this is the power of the check. You get the king away, you threaten a fork here. If the king comes to f8, then you threaten checkmate instead. And yeah, you're attacking the rook as well. If bishop takes, then black loses his rook. So this is why bishop takes was better, but Rubinstein played bishop f4, and here black made a horrible blunder, which is f5. And now comes the tactic, which, believe me, you will see it a lot in similar pawn structures coming out from either the London system or the Queen's Gambit declined, which is knight takes pawn here. Black cannot recapture. If black does not recapture, then black lost a very important central pawn. And if black takes back, then bishop c7 wins the queen. So, into the next trap. This trap is called the Siberian Trap, and it starts from e4, c5, d4, which is the Smith-Morra Gambit. One thing about the Smith-Morra, it's quite a dangerous gambit for black if black doesn't know what he is doing. But once you study the variation, then you will get very comfortable positions as black. So d4, c takes, c3, pawn takes, knight takes. This is the main plan of the opening. You offer a pawn, but you get very fast development. Now knight c6, knight f3, e6, bishop c4, queen c7, developing the queen, castles, knight f6, normal developing moves, queen e2, which is this is quite a typical move for the Smith-Morra. You put the queen here, you put the rook on d1, and you pressure the d file, and you later push e5. But it's imprecise here in this position because of knight g4, which is quite interesting. Well, first of all, you control the e5 square, so no e5, and it looks very logical for white to actually go h3, but it's a blunder. Feel free to pause the video here and find the win. Well, the winning move here is knight d4, and now there's nothing for white. If white takes the knight, then it's checkmate, and if white takes this knight to stop checkmate, then you just take the queen and you win the game, simply. Now, next trap. We have the Fajarowicz, I don't know, it's a Polish name, or it sounds Polish, but it's a nice trap. Start with d4, knight f6, c4, e5, the Budapest defense or gambit. And after pawn takes, you go knight g5, knight g4, sorry, trying to take back the pawn. And then you go knight c6 and queen e7, sorry, and yeah, you try to win your pawn back. This is the Budapest gambit, but there is here the tricky move knight e4, which is again a bit dubious, but it's very interesting because of the following. Now after knight f3, you go d6. Now it looks logical to take the pawn. I mean, okay, white now is up a free pawn, right? But no, there's a trick here. After bishop takes, if let's say, white plays a normal move g3 to develop his bishop onto g2. Now play knight takes on f2. After king takes, you have bishop g3, and yeah, there is nothing white can do to defend the queen. So white loses his queen. Now this knight sacrifice on f2 and then bishop check to win the queen actually could be seen in other openings, which I will show later, but it's good to have this pattern in mind. Now next trap we have is called the Blackburne Shilling trap, something like this, and it starts with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, so the Italian game, and here we play knight d4. Now the best response here for white is just to take, and after pawn takes you go c3, you castle. Maybe you could go a4 later, you put the knight here, you drop the bishop, you put the knight on c4 instead, and you go maybe f4 if you want. I mean, yeah, white has a very good position here, but it looks like a free pawn here on e5, but it's actually a bad move because of the following: queen g5, attacking g2 and the knight, and sacrificing the pawn on f7. It looks like a, I mean, knight takes on f7 just forks the queen and the rook, but this is completely lost now for white. After queen takes, rook f1, you play an important move here. You play queen takes with check. Now if white blocks with the queen, then you just win the queen, and if white blocks with the bishop, you have knight f3, and it's checkmate. This pattern also repeats in the Caro-Kann. I will show you later how, but keep it in mind. Next trap we have is called the Englund Gambit, which starts from d4 and e5 immediately. The Budapest was knight f6, and after c4 you go e5. But if you go e5 immediately, it's called the Englund Gambit. It's a horrible opening, like the Budapest. Don't play it, unless like in blitz and bullet for fun, but it's bad. Pawn takes, you go knight c6, trying to win back your pawn. Knight f3, and you go here. The tricky move, queen e7. Now bishop f4, this is actually the best move, and defending the pawn. And here black checks on b4. So queen b4 check. The bishop is forked with the king, so you have to play bishop d2 to defend your bishop and stop the check. And here after queen takes on b2, the best move here is knight c3. And here there's an interesting line that you can try also in blitz and bullet, which is bishop b4. I actually got this variation in a classical game. My opponent played this for me, and he of course lost, but it was quite interesting. After rook b8, you play queen takes knight. This is the idea of the sacrifice. After bishop takes, you go bishop check. You have to block with the knight, the only move, and then you take back the pawn, and yeah, you have a bishop pair. I think you have a pawn for the queen. It's definitely not enough, but it's quite interesting, and I mean it's a bit hard to play for white, but if white manages to trade down one of these bishops, then white just solved all of his problems and he's completely winning. You could even think of giving a rook here for a bishop, just to stop the power of the bishop pair, and then enjoy the extra material. But the trap here is actually after knight c3, after queen takes, bishop c3. I mean, this looks stronger than knight c3. It comes with tempo, defends the rook, and attacks the queen. But this is actually a blunder because of the following move, bishop b4. Now bishop b4 is very strong because if you take the bishop, I don't take the rook, take knight takes on b4. Now the c2 pawn is hanging and the rook are hanging. Black is completely winning. And if let's say queen defense, the queen defense. Now if bishop takes, you can take with the queen defense here, the rook, and the knight defends the queen. But this is just checkmate. So this is the idea of the trap. I will advise you to study this. This position is very interesting for bullet and blitz. You will enjoy it definitely. Don't play it in serious games. It's horrible. The last trap we have is called the fishing pole trap or pole trap. We start with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, the Ruy Lopez, and here knight f6. You have the what's called the Berlin defense, the most boring opening in chess. After knight f6, white castles. Now the most common move here is knight takes on e4. This is the idea of the opening. You just enter a very drawish position after d4 here, I think, the move, or you can play rook e1, never mind. But here the trap starts with knight g4. Now knight g4 is just okay, it's a bit dubious, but again, try templates and bullet. You want to put the bishop on f5, go h5, h4, come with the queen maybe, not immediately and lose it, but this is the idea, to get a bit aggressive. And yeah, it looks logical to play h3, which is the best move actually. And you don't move back your knight here. If you move back your knight, then you just lost time. You go h5. Now white is actually better here in this position after a move like c3 followed by d4, and yeah, white has to ignore this knight and maybe take it at the right moment, but just keep developing and strike at the center. But if white takes, and then you take back with the pawn, and white is completely lost here. If you don't move the knight, then the knight will be taken, and then this knight could jump here and the queen comes to the attack. If the knight moves, then queen h4 just is mating. The only move is f3 or f4, and then you go g3 and you're mating next. This idea with going knight g5 or knight g4 and defending the knight and sacrificing it could be seen in several different openings, but it's good to keep it in mind. It's a repeating theme. And I think we saw something like this in the World Chess Championship between Nepomniachtchi and Dingliren. But yeah, never mind. So that was all for today. Now some of you might ask me, okay, but these are horrible openings. I'm not gonna play them. What can I learn from these traps? Okay, I have a bonus for you here, and it shows how knowing these basic traps could actually help you build better pattern recognition in chess. Maybe maybe you remember the which trap was it? The checkmate with the knight on f3. This could repeat in an opening like the Caro-Kann, which is quite a sound opening after e4 c6. I think the line goes d4 d5, knight c3 here, pawn takes, knight takes. Let's say something like knight here bd7, the Karpov variation to go knight f6, and after the trade bring the knight to f6. You have this move, queen e2, and if, well, black goes to f6, then you have checkmate here. The pawn is pinned. So this just shows how these traps could actually repeat, maybe not exactly, but in a similar fashion in other openings. There is another one I want to show you, which is after e4 d5. You go knight f3. This is the Scandinavian defense. You go knight f3 here. Okay, it looks like a free pawn, and it's a free pawn. It's a gambit again. You go knight g4 g5, attacking the pawn, threatening to take the pawn back, and here after knight f6, you play this move d3. You remember the trick I showed you with when the bishop captured on d6 and after g3, white sacked his knight on f2. This is similar. After pawn takes, it looks like a free pawn for black. I mean, black is just up a pawn. And a very logical move here is h6, kicking the knight back. But here comes a very similar trick. Knight takes on f7. And after king takes, you go check, king takes, and white wins the queen. So this just shows you how traps could repeat in chess and how important it is to learn these basic traps. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is like a test video. It's my first one on this channel. Put a like if you like the video. Subscribe. No, maybe it's a bit early to subscribe. I still have no videos here. I will hopefully try to post another video tonight, playing some blitz. But the thought of this channel is more like me playing some blitz, but mostly analyzing games. So it will be mostly focused on game analysis. I hope you enjoyed this video and see you in the next one. Bye.